this room. Let it all go, let it all go. No submission, this is 250. Greatness or death, this is how we roll. Before I'm laid to rest, I'll conquer the globe. Yo, Michael T. Porter here, and thank you guys for tuning in to the 250 Gemstones Exchange podcast. Thank y'all. Shout out to the VIP members. I call the people who have purchased a monthly subscription. I want to say thank you guys so much for all the support, and I won't disappoint. I'm going to give my best every time. I have a fire episode for y'all. This is a story about Fleece, but not only Fleece Johnson, about how children are thrown into penitentiaries and prisons with adults. Y'all check out this video. We'll be right back.
What was the young Fleece like? When did you get started? Where was you born? And tell us a little bit about your childhood.
Well, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky, west end of Louisville, projects called Southwick. Police was talking, and one of them's car was stolen, and I jumped in and stole it right there in the dirt, right? Stole the police car, right?
Right.
And I'm known for doing a lot of stuff, and I started carrying pistols when I was 13, 2 of them, 45.
Then he's only 13 carrying pistols. There's something wrong in his household. He may not go into it, but it's obvious there's something wrong in this man's household.
Nickel plated. I had twins. And so I robbed everybody. I robbed crap gangs, dope fiends, prostitutes, faggots, sissies. You name it. I was noted for it. I was the most feared young person in Louisville at that time. You know, and I didn't have no fear of the police, right? And as a matter of fact, another thing, they documented, I had a cousin called John Sanders. And in the projects of Collar Homes, I'm driving through there in a stolen car. They got him spread eagle on the ground like this.
So he's already stealing, doing what he doing in the streets. So at 13, you gotta ask, where's the parents? It should, now, not all the blame should be on the parents, but at 13, you can't do nothing at 13.
You know, making him, you know, shameful. I got out of the car and drew on the police, took their weapons, got my cousin up out of the streets, and we took off. That's the type of person I was, right? So I was such a menace that when they finally caught up to me, they said, we're going to send him to the penitentiary.
Here we go.
You know, I got locked up for 16 robberies, 8 shooting and wounded, and a car theft. So in a plea agreement, I took 12 years.
At 16 years old?
No, I was 15.
At 15?
Yeah, I was 15, and they sent me to the penitentiary, even though back...
So he was still a child. He was only 15. And he's going to explain how they sent him to the big house. Well, the adults. 15.
Back then, they had a law back then that juveniles can't go to adult prison. They sent me. They said, fuck that law. They sent me. So,
So real quick, the state of Kentucky broke the law. That's what I'm saying. We break the law. The American people break the law. They're going to throw the book at your punk ass and throw you up under the jail. But when they want to break the law to make an example out of somebody, they have the reins to do it. They have the space to do it, the authority to do it, to break the law, to put a child in adult prisons. Just sick.
I get to prison, the same newspaper, Courier Journal, they came down to interview me my first day there. The headline read, 16-year-old prisoner wants to get out and go straight. That's the headline. So, and they still got that headlines in the Career Journal. I had a friend that she had to pay $15, $20 to get it, but they still got it on file. So, when I hit prison, I see a lot of people out of robbed and stuff, and they talking shit. Oh, it's just gonna be a good day. Look who they just brought in. But what they didn't realize, I had 2 brothers locked up, 2 cousins, and
So it wasn't just Fleece that was something wrong in this. It wasn't only Fleece's household. His entire family, or most of his family, is messed up. There ain't no judgment over here. I don't judge because I know how the struggle go. I know how it is when you just fighting to survive. So what I'm saying is, there was a problem not only with Fleece, his family, but so you would have to wonder what's going on in the neighborhood, what's going on in the community, what's going on in the school to where families are being locked up.
a handful of just die-hard gangster niggas,
Yeah.
So I started fighting down there, and my brothers, they run all up to my brothers, tell your little brother this and that. For we hurt him, my brother, like, you ain't gonna do shit to him, And so I fought and fought. And they had this dude down there named Reggie. Big old, I'm talking about, back then they was wearing afros. This motherfucker had a big ass chest. His chest was so big that he can put a canned good on his chest and level it. It stuck out so far, And every time I go take a shower, this nigga will come in the shower behind me.
And I understand how they put a child with men, like I said, they're already developed. How can you even this is the physicality? A child 9 times out of 10 cannot overpower a man, a grown man that's physically fit. Now you do have some. Now when I went to school, we did have some 15 and 16 and 17-year-olds. They were massive. They were bigger than grown men. We went to school with a few Samoans, some Tongans, some black dudes. I remember this one dude. He was 6'6", 250 pounds, 16 years old, 17 years old. But see, he went in. He was only 15. But I'm just saying, some boys, especially the boys in my era, they were massive. And some of the guys, especially them gangster ass niggas, they were knocking out grown men. So, but overall, even though they were massive, they were strong, they were already, say at 15, 16, they're already benching 250 pounds. I'm talking about the football players, they were already benching. Push-ups, sit-ups, they were very active, but not all 15-year-olds are built the same. But even with all that lifting, they don't have the bone density and the strength and the experience of years and years of putting that stress on your bones and getting your bones and your body stronger and your muscles stronger like a grown man. This country's sick.
All them muscles and all that shit. I ain't have no muscles, And he used to stare at me, I look over at him, this nigga was washing up, staring right at me. So I'm like, I tell my little partners and shit, what's up with this nigga? Keep staring at me and shit.
So these were one of the topics, and I knew they were doing this back then, and I've always been opposed to a child 17 and under going into an adult prison. So I want to know, do a little research, what unit are they in? So I guess you're just in with the adults, because I never heard of there's a child unit inside of a prison. Like there's a specific block or unit specifically only for children. This is absolutely crazy, but I'm going to read a little bit of this article. And as you can see, when I first saw that Fleece video, it was funny, but then I actually dug into it. How do they put 14 or 15-year-old with men much stronger? You know what I mean? I always wondered, like, to hear from a man that's gone through that experience. So before Again, to Fleece, in my opinion about all of this, we'll give a little history. So this is according to EGI.org. If you guys want to look at this article, the title is "Children in Adult Prison." Let's see. In hundreds of ways, ranging from mandatory school attendance to harsher penalties for crimes involving minors, the law recognizes that children are different from adults. They're more vulnerable, emotional, and impulsive, and they can't get themselves out of unsafe homes or communities, but they're also more likely to change as they grow up. And so, as we pass laws to protect kids from their own poor decisions and from adults who would harm or take advantage of them. But until recently, these legal protections didn't apply to children accused of committing violent crimes. Children were executed in the U.S. until 2005. Now, I didn't know about this. Did y'all know about this? Y'all let me know. We can talk. Children were executed in the United States until 2005, and only in the last decade has the Supreme Court limited death and prison sentences for children. Man. Kids as young as 8 can still be charged as an adult, held in an adult jail, and sentenced to extreme sentences in an adult prison. They're talking about right now in 2023. EGI is working to protect children from abusive treatment in an adult criminal justice system. Oh my goodness. I know they can get death penalty. Look, y'all look at this. Death and prison sentences. The U.S. is the only country in the world where kids as young as 13 have been sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Say this one more time. The U.S. is the only country in the world where kids as young as 13 have been sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Cruel and unusual. EGI report documents the practice of sentencing 13 to 14-year-old children to die in prison. Before the Supreme Court banned the death penalty for juveniles in 2005, 366 people were executed for juvenile offenses. That ban allowed EGI to focus on some 3,000 people who were sentenced to life imprisonment without parole for offenses committed when they were 17 or younger. Children as young as 13 were among those condemned to die in prison. I didn't know they were deleting children in the prisons. Children as young as 13 were among those condemned to die in prison. Most of these sentences were mandatory. The sentencing judge was not allowed to consider the child's age or life histories. See, this pause real quick. They don't care. Every time I walk out the door now that I'm a man, thankful that I made it this age, I know that the world don't give a fuck about me, don't give a fuck about nobody else. They are sick. The system is sick. I'll get into a spiritual moment after this, but this world is sick. Because they said they didn't even consider the child's age and life history. You don't know, does a child has trauma? Does a child have anger issues? Is it come from a broken home? They don't care. Is a child lacking food? Is a child lacking God? Is a child lacking, what is a child lacking? Resources? Networking? Is a child antisocial? They don't care. The judge is not allowed to consider the child's age or just look at the crime. Lock them up, lock them up, lock them up, lock them up. Some heartless bastards. Cool. When we become heartless, and it's all a problem. We're gonna dig deep. Some children were sentenced for crimes where no one was killed or even injured, and many were convicted even though older teens or adults were primarily responsible for the crime. So they're saying, like, they say they joined a gang, but the older ones in the gang, they committed the crime, but the youngsters, they were just with them, but you still consider an accomplice. 17% of those 14 or younger were sentenced to die in prison were children of color. 70% of those 14 or younger. Wow. So they knocking off children of color, black and Latinos, and the others. EGI launched a litigation campaign in 2006 to challenge death in prison sentences imposed on children. 3 years later, we argued in the Supreme Court that the Constitution forbids sentencing children to die in prison. On May 17, 2010, the court in Graham versus Florida barred life without parole sentences for juveniles convicted of non-homicide offenses. So they had to literally fight. I mean, common sense would say, I don't think it's a good idea to send a child to die in prison, knowing what goes on in there. And the stuff that goes on in there, it's allowed because these people are sick. The court recognized that the ways in which children are different from adults have to be considered in sentencing. Since 2010, we have successfully represented children across the country to obtain new sentences. So what they're doing is they're looking at these harsh sentences they're sending in the harsh sentences that were given to children, and they're trying to overturn these sentences. So a few more statistics, and I'm going to get my input because this is absolutely insane. They're talking about all children are children. EGI documents the abusive treatment of children in the adult criminal justice system. 4.5 thousand children are housed in adult jails and prisons on any given day in America. Children are 36 times more likely to die by suicide in an adult jail than in a juvenile detention facility. Every state in America has capacity to house juveniles separate from adults, but many refuse to do so. If you guys want to check out the rest of this article, it's egi.org. And once again, the title is Children in Adult Prison. And this stuck out to me when it says every state in America has capacity to house juveniles separate from adults, but many refuse to do so. They refuse to put children with children. They want to put children in these horrific conditions because it's a lot of trauma. They want these kids to be traumatized. They want these kids, they're just sick people. They want these kids to be sexually abused. They want these kids to endure, because grown men are having trouble dealing with the daily pressures of the guards and dealing with the daily pressures of inmates. And you got inmates that do R word, you got inmates that delete, you got inmates that do all type of heinous crimes, and they think it's a good idea to put a child in there. 13, they're knocking off 13-year-olds in prison, sentencing children to life sentences in prison. And they said the judge is not even allowed to investigate why is this happening. See, this country is not fixated on prevention. This country is not fixated on how can we prevent children from joining gangs? How can we prevent children from committing suicide, homicide? What can we do to aid the children? There's little investment in the children. There's little resources and assets allocated to outside the school. Hell, the schools are crap too. We need to fix these schools too. But even outside of school, recreation, there's nothing for the children in this country to really just be for children. And they know that. That's the part of the design. They want these children to be lost, broken. This is why they encourage divorce. This is why they pushing certain agendas to where men and women are separate. This is why there's ideologies that do not come from God are implemented on society, because it crumbles. And while everything is crumbling, they get to satisfy their satanic monetary agenda, where they get paid off the inmates, they get paid off these children, they're getting paid off the adults, they're getting paid, not just per inmate, just and when the inmates use certain services within the prison system, they get paid off. That is big business. So they're getting paid, and two, they get to serve Satan, because you're putting a child that's not developed. The child is not developed. See, I'm a grown man, and in my mind, I don't know how many children, unless of them children in the hood, they're taught like real early to be tough, like really early. But if you just have a child, just a normal child, just a poor child who has low self esteem, see, most children, you know, they don't know how to, they don't know how to balance the violence, the violent part of themselves versus the civil part of itself, and when to use both. Because when you're a child, you know, either you just react on impulse or you just gonna cower. Because a lot of people are never faced, even adults, even grown men, never faced with constant BS coming at you inside the prison system. A lot of people don't know how. Nobody has had the experience of being around killers and rapists and these type of people coming around you, you being housed with these people, and at any given time they can take your life, and know what to say, and when to say it, knowing to be respectful and knowing when to be disrespectful, and just handling situations that come at you where you hit this dude and not knowing what's the unknown, when he's going to come back or if he's going to sit a hit out on me. You know, and you putting these children in these type of environment to where death and violence is all around, and you're trying to do your best to maneuver and survive. So, especially if a child is not, haven't been introduced to God, because when you were God, then you know you're not supposed to fear anybody. You don't fear no man. You fear no government. You do not fear death. You don't fear anything. You don't fear success. You don't feel your failures. You just live your life to the fullest for God, and you just take whatever comes with you because you know that God's gonna have your back. And even if your enemy gets the best of you, you know that your enemies didn't take your spirit, your will to fight. Your enemies didn't take your spiritual connection with God. Your enemies didn't take everything that you stand for, your integrity. You know that some guys want to sexually assault you. Okay, let's say they do manage to do that, and you go endure that. Are you still gonna love God when those things happen to you? If you get stabbed up, are you still gonna love God? If you you know, get your face bashed, are you still gonna love God? And not only that, are you still gonna have the will to crush your enemies? See, these are a lot of things as a man you have to work on. There's a lot of things as a man. And how does a 13-year-old know all this? But see, like I said, even a violent 13-year-old, they're just going off violence. Like there's something wrong with him. There's something wrong in the household. There's something wrong in the community. So a 13-year-old or 16-year-old, they are violent. Just like in a lot of these major cities, the youngsters, they just busting that gun. Maybe because it's fun. Maybe because they're trying to build a name for themselves. Because they're angry, they can't get out. They a lot of the youth want a better life. They just don't know how, because the world is set up for them not to know how. So not only do you not know how to get any money, you don't know anything about college because your parents don't know anything about college. So your parents, you came from a broken home, you don't have no direction, no guidance, no resources, and then it's all on you to figure it out. But how you figure it out will determine if you end up in the grave, end up in a jail cell, or end up walking across the stage. It's on you, but you better figure it out. You better figure it out fast, because now you're on your own, and the bills, you're stuck into this cycle, this hamster on the wheel of paying your bills and being a functioning adult while still working on yourself. You're 25, you're still working on yourself. Working on yourself doesn't stop. You're 35, 45, life moves fast. And you put all this pressure, all of this on a child. They say even as young as 8 years old, we're sentenced to death. This is a sick country. I love my country, you know, but I don't love nothing above God. But now I ain't trying to preach to y'all. If y'all atheists or whatever, I don't judge, because we're taught not to judge. We just love y'all. Hope you guys do find the light. You know, their only job is to push the light out there. And if you accept it, great. We're so grateful that you are, because then you can be that voice that can change somebody else's life. If you don't accept it, hey, it's on you. You got to deal with those consequences. You know what I mean? You got to deal with whatever you got to deal with on your own, because nobody comes to help you, because you didn't allow the help to come into your life. So that is totally on you. But there's no judgment. There is absolutely no judgment, because the more important thing is that understanding what we're dealing with. To lock up a child and sentence a child, how is that even legal and constitutional? EGI, that article I just read, they literally had to fight to get the Supreme Court to take that off the Constitution, to put that in the Constitution that you can't do that. And then they're fighting right now to overturn the sentences. The judges are sick. The people at the top are sick. The politicians, the Congress, are sick people. I mean, look at today. They're trying to normalize pedophilia. Got drag queens coming into school, and even the parents are sick too. Men who thinking they're women, they're cutting off their body parts. You got doctors. Doctors are supposed to be saving lives, and they're performing these type of surgeries. Cutting up a man's genitals to give him a artificial vagina. Cutting off a man's genitals to give him an artificial vagina, and they thinking this is acceptable in society. Pushing hormones on the transgender man, or pushing hormones on the transgender women. Pushing pedophilia, exposing children to crap. They need to be learning STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. They need to be learning about finance. They need to be learning about. There's so much these children need to learn about to get themselves out of the predicament that they're in. That's what I was talking about earlier. All these kids coming from the ghettos, and all these kids are coming from broken homes. This is how the world is designed. They love it when homes are broken, because they get to throw you in the cage and get paid off you, and then they get to satisfy their satanic agenda, meaning they're giving your soul and your body to an entity, which is prison, so you can be destroyed physically, mentally, emotionally. That's why it is describing in the article how children are more likely to commit suicide, they're more likely to, have trauma and have emotional breakdowns, because that's a lot for a child. You're putting a child, someone who is not even physically strong enough to fight off a grown man. Hell, a lot of grown men ain't strong enough to fight off 2 or 3 dudes. How is a child going to do that? Absolutely disgusting. I didn't know this, y'all. I knew that it was going on, but I didn't know to what extent. I just thought that it was 16 and 17-year-olds going in there, being housed with the adults. But I didn't know there were 15, 14, 13, and 8-year-olds in there. This is absolute atrocity, and they all need to be. We need a RICO on our damn government. We need a RICO Act launched on our government, from Congress to the police. Drain, and what Trump say, drain this damn swamp. How is this even acceptable in society? But then again, I got to think about the side. They're killing children before they even take their first breath. Killing children in the womb of the mother. Taking the life in the womb of a mother. The child won't even get to take their first breath. We're killing children. Now they're trying to normalize touching children. Throwing children in prison. They say we're the only one in the world who do this. Where 13-year-old or younger are able to be sentenced to life sentences and be put to death. Absolutely disgusting what these people are doing. Absolutely disgusting. I don't know how this country lasts as long doing as much evil as they have done. But I'm tell you like this, like I said, I ain't preaching, I'm just reaching. I ain't preaching, I'm just reaching. I hope everyone gets right with the Lord, get right with yourself. I wish y'all the best in your relationships, and please, if y'all got kids, please protect these babies, because this world, and Tupac said a long time ago, America eats our children. They don't want to see our children grow. I mean, you gotta be too smart to figure this out. Throwing 13-year-olds in prison with 35, 45, 55-year-old men. The mind games they have to go through. I mean, a child. And Fleece Johnson, he was an example of, like, this is a troubled child. And even if you feel that he's troubled, put him in the juvenile system until he's 18, and then send him up the road. You know what I mean? But to put him in at 14, 15, 16, absolutely disgusting. But y'all let me know what y'all think about this. Long live 250 gemstones exchange. Long live all the wonderful things that we fight for. And long live the desire for excellence and greatness. I'm gone.